Good morning. I'm Ruth Van Lillian, the minister of this congregation, and we'd like to welcome you to our online worship service at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Tuscaloosa. We are a covenantal community founded on love and a common devotion to our free faith. We recognize all the earth as sacred ground, and wherever we are physically this morning, we welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome those visiting with us online this morning. We're so glad that you are with us. We invite you to connect with our congregation in the comments below, or via email or phone or Facebook. You will find the necessary information in the order of service link found below in the video description.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Snow, the lay service leader for today. Please click the link in our video description below for our order of service and other useful information. Our church website and Facebook page have information about our new online offerings. Also, members and friends are encouraged to read all Newsnet emails to stay updated on congregational matters. The prelude prepares us for the service.
Good morning. My name is Noah Schubert. We invite you to light a chalice of your own at home. This might be a simple candle in a bowl or something more elaborate you have made or purchased. We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and as a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning. We worship together though we are at distance, by celebrating that which is sacred to us individually and collectively.
Our opening words are call and response. I invite you to respond, "You are welcome among us." If you are a seeker, a questioner, a believer, or an unbeliever, you are welcome among us. No matter your national origin or ethnic background, you are welcome among us. No matter your race or the color of your skin, you are welcome among us. No matter your sexual orientation or gender identity, you are welcome among us. No matter your education or income, you are welcome among us. Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome among us.
O star of truth and shineth through paths of doubt and fear, I ask beneath thy guidance my pathway may appear. However long the journey, however hard it be, though I be lone and weary, be on I follow.
gather together in loving community, we remember that we do not travel this earth alone. We share our lives as we light candles and hold each other in meditative thought and reverence. I'll now light a candle in my home while you light a candle in yours. And we can together observe a moment of silence while you share your joys and your burdens by replying in the comments below. And we can engage together in celebration and condolence. I will now light a final candle for all burdens and celebrations shared in our virtual space that went unspoken. May the warm light of these flames bring us peace.
Let us spend a few moments of silence as we think about all the joys and concerns that have been mentioned and have gone unspoken today. Then I will close us with a few words. We are made of the dust of distant suns, and we breathe molecules of oxygen from the dawn of the earth. We are connected with everything that lives, that has lived, that will ever live. Let us find comfort and strength this day in remembering that we are never really alone. We have each other's company on the journey. And right now, remembering that is very important. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
Okay, hello everyone. Today's story is a story of friendship and change of life events, but it involves stars, not people. The title of the story is Big Red Joins the White Dwarf Club, written by myself and Katie Crocker Buda, my younger daughter. So let me tell you this story. This story takes place in the Starverse, an imaginary universe where stars talk and can leave their orbits if they want to. The Starverse has good stars, bad stars, big stars, small stars, girl stars, boy stars, bright stars, dim stars, and a host of other things that we're familiar with. The most famous star in the Starverse is Superstar. Superstar lives in the Milky Way galaxy, which we see in the picture, where he stands for truth, justice, and the galactic way. He is also a friend to all the stars in the galaxy and helps them as they navigate the walk of starlight. He wears a distinctive cape. That's that thing coming off of him. He calls it a cape. In a previous story, we learned about Superstar's friend, Big Red. Big Red was a red giant star in his twilight years. He was born many galactic years ago in the Milky Way on an orbit far from the galactic center. In his younger years, before he became a red giant, Big Red was yellowish in color. He was also much smaller. He thought about that time a lot. This was how he looked when he worked at a local star casino. The name of the casino was the Starlight Casino, where your Starbucks won't fall into a black hole. So on the right, he's thinking about that time when he was a lot smaller and younger. Like other stars, Big Red became a first stage red giant after he ran out of hydrogen fuel in his core. When this happened, he could no longer work at the Star Casino because he was too big. He became a clerk in the Star Post Office, and since then has enjoyed hobnobbing with other big red stars, like Mr. and Mrs. Star Cutler, shown here. And there's the sign for the United Star Post Office, the Big Star Division. That's where the big stars would go to get their stamps. Now, although Big Red was a first stage red giant for a long time, eventually he became a yellow giant star. This happened when he was finally able to draw energy from helium fusion in his core. And there are pictures of him as a first stage red giant and then as a yellow giant. But this phase of his star life was very short-lived. Before he knew it, he ran out of helium in his core and became an even bigger red giant a second time. And that's called a second stage red giant. It was during Big Red's second stage red giant phase that his sense of being shifted to his tiny, hot core. Then his envelope gases went slowly out into space as a planetary nebula. All low-mass stars like him do this eventually. During this time, Superstar visited him often to see how he was doing. "Your nebula is very beautiful," said Superstar. But as Big Red's envelope gases went into space, they began to fade. And eventually, his beautiful nebula disappeared. This made him very sad. He was now what they called a white dwarf. Superstar contacted another white dwarf named Pip about what was happening. Superstar told Pip that Big Red might need some support. He's really small now. Pip went to see Big Red. "You're one of us now," he said. "Although you have lost your nebula, you are still a very beautiful small star." "Yes, indeed," said Superstar. "I guess I'm neither big nor red anymore," said Big Red. "We have a new name for you," said Pip. "How would you like to be called Tiny White?" "Well, if the star shoe fits, I'll have to wear it," said Big Red. "Can I join your group?" "Sure," said Pip. "Come along and I will introduce you to the gang." With that, Superstar bade them farewell and went back to his job of protecting the galaxy. He wished good luck to Big Red, now Tiny White. "Thanks for everything, Superstar," he said. Big Red was big for so long that he didn't realize how he never noticed white dwarfs. "You were all here, but I never saw you," he said to Pip. Now Pip took him around the galaxy to meet his friends. "Hello, Tiny White," they all said. Their names were Flip, Trip, Sip, Dip, Lip, and Misty. "We were all red giants at one time," said Pip, who dreamed of that time a lot. Pip said, "I was once a red giant also, but now, like all white dwarfs, I am just a small glowing cinder cooling off in space." Tiny White tried to adjust to his new life as a white dwarf. He moved from his original orbit to a white dwarf retirement area. One of the hardest issues for him was getting used to being so small and dense. "It's weird," he said to Pip, "not having any sunspots or prominences or any bubbling motions. My gases are really dense now, not thinly spread like they once were. It's also weird to be so hot. I was never this hot before in my life," he said. "Don't worry, you'll get used to it all," said Pip. Tiny White wondered what kinds of things he could do as a white dwarf. "The big stars think we don't do anything," said Pip, "but we do. We have white dwarf parties. In fact, we're having one tomorrow. Would you like to come?" "Sure," said Tiny White. "This sounds like fun." "Here's a list of things you can do," said Pip. "You could relax and cool off, which is what most white dwarfs do. You could go nova. That could be interesting, but it's not recommended because it involves an explosion on your surface. You could go into a close orbit with another white dwarf and emit gravitational waves. You could give star lectures. You could try and lower your density for fun. You could start a white dwarf business. You could watch white dwarf movies. You could sing white dwarf songs. You could have white dwarf sleepovers, and the list goes on and on," said Pip. The next galactic day, friends arrived for the star party. It was a star costume party. White dwarfs from other parts of the galaxy came. Tiny White went as a cowboy star. Pip was a star comet. Misty was Cleo Starthra. Elvira was Bozo Star. Flip went as Starth Vader. Starla went as Helen of Troy Star. Sip went as a Stormtrooper. Dip went as the Star DeLorean. Lip went as Alien Star. Trip as Star Ring, and Silas went as the Star with no name. Everybody had fun with the costume party. Now comes the movie. Today they were watching Flushed into a Black Hole, starring Vincent Price Star. Yipes, I'm being distorted. Come in, said the black hole. Join me for dinner, ha ha ha. The white dwarfs were scared silly. I'm so scared, said Misty, I'm going to lower my density. Don't do that, said Pip, you'll be too big for our club. So they were scared about that nasty black hole. Next, it was white dwarf joke time. Why did the white dwarf cross the galaxy? To get to the other tidal arm, of course. What did the cooler white dwarf say to the hotter white dwarf? Stop being such a hothead. What did the police officer white dwarf say to the criminal white dwarf? You're a degenerate. Why did the white dwarf go over the white dwarf mass limit? He let another star dump on him. Hardy har har. Next, it was time for white dwarf dancing. When white dwarfs dance, they get a partner, a white dwarf, and go into a very close orbit. Tiny White asked Misty to be his partner. We make beautiful gravitational waves together, he said. Isn't that fun? Next, the group decided to catch up on what was going on in Star Hollywood. Here are some of the latest movies. Errol Flynn Star just finished his latest movie, Gone with the Galactic Wind. James Whitmore Star talked about his latest film, Journey to the Center of the Galaxy. Walt Disney Star made Blue, White, and the Seven Red Dwarfs. John Sturges Star made The Magnificent Seven Sisters. Quentin Tarantino made Elliot Ness Star in The Uncompressibles. Next, the group decided to listen to some Star music. These are the top hits on Star Radio. Number 1, Start Right Now by the Spice Girls Stars. 2, Down Galaxy by Pat Clark Star. A Whole New Galaxy by Galadden. Don't Blow Up on Me, Baby by David Soulstar. I Go Into Gravitational Collapse by Paul Davy Star. Blue Star on Blue Star by Bobby Vinton Star. He Shines in You, the Lion Star King. Up in the Galactic Halo, the Star Preems. Back in My Spiral Arms again, the Star Preems. I'm Dreaming of a White Dwarf Christmas, Bing Crosby Star. And A Hunk of Burning Hydrogen by Elvis Presley Star. Well, after all this was a good introduction for Tiny White to his new life as a white dwarf. He enjoyed most of his galactic days just cooling off and observing what was going on around him. Superstar would drop in and see him from time to time. The end. Until next time.
Minds, hearts, and hands and feet and rolling wheels. Minds, hearts, and hands and feet, rolling wheels. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that serve, and feet and wheels. Minds, hearts, and hands and feet and rolling wheels. Minds, hearts, and hands and feet and rolling wheels. Minds, hearts, and hands and feet and rolling wheels. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that serve, and feet and wheels. Minds, hearts, and hands and feet and rolling wheels. Wonderful.
Out of gratitude for all that we have been given and all that we have now, we share our resources because we love and trust one another, and because this church enriches our lives and empowers us to make the world better. We rely upon each other, members and friends, and we appreciate the generous donations and payment of pledges to support the legacy, vision, and work of this church community. Contributions may be made via PayPal by using the link below or by mailing your check directly to UUCT. All undesignated contributions will be split between this congregation and our designated Split the Plate organization. Please remember in the comments field in PayPal to designate this pledge as to UUCT or in the comments field of your check. If you prefer to send a contribution directly to our Split the Plate organization, please mail that check directly to the organization. The offertory music will continue to play in this window as you open a new window to make your contribution. By the work of our hands and the generosity of our hearts, our love is made real. Thank you for these gifts.
Hello everyone. I'm Ron Buda, Professor Emeritus of Astronomy, University of Alabama, and I'm the speaker for today's UUCT sermon. The title of my presentation is The Wonder of Betelgeuse. Throughout human history, the heavens have been viewed to have an architecture that is immutable. Things may change on Earth, but the night sky is rock steady, always the same. The stars are fixed in the patterns of the constellations, and while the planets appear to move, they move with a steadiness such that we can predict their movement and where they will be decades in the future. Yet from time to time, the sky provides something that defies its characterization of immutability. An inexplicable change occurs, forcing us to modify our views. During the past 6 months or so, one of the brightest stars in our night sky, Betelgeuse, in the constellation Orion the Hunter, dropped noticeably in apparent brightness, an event that caught astronomers off guard. The drop in brightness was so large that it significantly altered the appearance of the constellation Orion. Although Betelgeuse is a known variable star, no one had ever seen it undergo such a drastic dimming like this before. Its general variations are small and not as easily noticed with the naked eye. But this year something was different. This was an event for the ages. In trying to explain Betelgeuse's dimming, astronomers drew on what they knew about highly evolved stars, meaning stars near the ends of their lives. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant star and a prime candidate for ending its life in a titanic explosion known as a supernova. This led some astronomers to consider the drop in brightness as a prelude to the explosion, kind of like a, quote, last gasp, end quote, before Betelgeuse meets its final destiny. Other astronomers suspected that dust near the star may be responsible for the drop. The star itself did not physically change, they argue, but something happened in its environment that blocked some of its light from reaching us. What really happened to Betelgeuse? Today I want to talk about this remarkable star and other similar phenomena which over the centuries have dispelled the ancient idea that the heavens are immutable. One such phenomenon is the appearance of a comet. Comets are small fragments of ice and rock that orbit the sun along long elliptical paths. Because of these paths, comets spend most of their time far from the sun and completely frozen. Only when they are close to the sun do they put on a show with bright, colorful atmospheres and tails. For a long time, comets were thought to be atmospheric phenomena, and most important, bad omens for rulers. The most celebrated example of the latter is King Harold II, who was defeated in the Battle of Hastings by William the Conqueror in 1066 AD, a year when Halley's comet returned. In the pre-telescopic era, some observers noticed that a few naked-eye stars varied in apparent brightness. For example, the star named Mira in the constellation Cetus the Whale would be bright for months at a time and then would drop below naked-eye visibility. It would rise back to maximum brightness in a cycle that repeated itself over a period of nearly a year. Mira is a big red star in the final stages of its life, but it is not a massive star. Unlike Betelgeuse, Mira will end its life in a very different way, as something called a white dwarf. A white dwarf is essentially the former core of a dead low-mass star. Another phenomenon that challenged immutability is the occasional appearance of a nova or new star. Sometimes in a sky full of known and already catalogued stars, a genuine new star would appear where none was seen before. These new stars were often quite bright, putting on a good naked eye show for a while, and then disappearing, never to reappear. One of the most celebrated examples of this was the Chinese guest star of 1054, which occurred in Taurus, the bull, and became as bright as Venus. Nearly 1,000 years later, astronomers examined the location where this event occurred and found a beautiful expanding nebula, now called the Crab Nebula. Nearly 50 years ago, a pulsar was discovered in the Crab Nebula. A pulsar is a rapidly rotating neutron star, a type of object that astronomers believe could only be created in a stellar explosion. Thus, some novae seen in our galaxy were actually supernovae. In the 19th century, a puzzling event occurred when a star named Eta Carinae, located in the far southern constellation of Carina the Keel, rose from dim naked-eye visibility to being the second brightest star in the night sky. It stayed bright for several years before fading below naked-eye visibility. Today it is a faint naked-eye star again. Eta Carinae is thought to have been a failed supernova, in the sense that its brightening event was associated with an eruption where it expelled a significant fraction of its mass, but was not destroyed in the process. These types of phenomena, comets, variable stars, successful supernovae, and failed supernovae, have short time scales in spite of the fact that stars in general evolve over very long time scales. For example, a star like the Sun can shine as a normal star for 10 billion years. It also takes the Sun 240 million years to orbit around the center of our galaxy. Things in the sky that happen on a short time scale are what we notice most easily. Betelgeuse is an important star to me because it played a strong role in generating my interest in astronomy 55 years ago. In the spring of 1965, astronomy grabbed me when I saw Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, while sitting on a couch by a window watching TV with my brothers in Baltimore, Maryland. Later that year, I saw Orion and noticed that Betelgeuse was reddish in color compared to the bright star Rigel, which was also in the constellation Orion. I was so impressed that I could see color in a star that I begged my stepfather to buy me a telescope. And this he did in the spring of 1966, a 2-inch Tasco refractor. The constellation Orion is one of the most recognizable patterns in the night sky, and the stars of Orion have colorful names. In the rectangular part of the figure of Orion, Betelgeuse is in the upper left corner. Rigel is to the lower right, Bellatrix is to the upper right, and Safe is at the lower left. In the belt, there are 3 bright stars from left to right: Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka. Then in the sword, there is what looks like a fuzzy star, but which in reality is the famous Orion Nebula. The many pictures I found of the Orion Nebula when I was younger captivated me. It was an interesting object to see and think about. Throughout the past 55 years, Orion had what I would call a normal, quote, normal look. In this look, Betelgeuse and Rigel have about the same brightness, both considerably brighter than Bellatrix, Safe, and the 3 belt stars. When at normal brightness, Betelgeuse is easily discerned as a reddish tinted star with the naked eye, while Rigel is tinted slightly bluish white. But in late 2019 and early 2020, Betelgeuse's brightness dropped to the level of Bellatrix. This made the constellation look noticeably different. Rigel stood alone as the brightest star in Orion, and Betelgeuse's color became harder to discern with the naked eye. Betelgeuse is one of the closest red supergiants to us. It is a gigantic evolved star, less than 10 million years old. It has a mass of about 12 times the Sun's mass, and a possible diameter of 800 million miles, nearly 1,000 times the diameter of the Sun. And if placed at the center of our solar system, the Earth would be 300 million miles below the star's surface, meaning the Earth would be a part of Betelgeuse. In the center of Betelgeuse, energy is being produced by fusion of a host of lighter chemical elements into heavier chemical elements. The development of a massive core of iron, which is what most stars more massive than 8 times the mass of the Sun do, will spell a death sentence for Betelgeuse. Because if the iron core builds up too much, it will undergo a violent collapse followed by a supernova explosion. Astronomers expect that this could happen to Betelgeuse in the next 100,000 years or so. When Betelgeuse started to behave strangely, this is why some astronomers thought an explosion might be imminent. If Betelgeuse actually exploded this year, we would not know about it for almost 700 years, because it is 700 light years away from us. News can't travel any faster than the speed of light. While there could be strange behavior of a star just before it explodes, astronomers have never caught any star at such a point in its evolution because the exact moment of an explosion is unpredictable. If Betelgeuse actually appeared as a supernova today, meaning it exploded 700 years ago, it would put on a show unlike anything seen in recorded history. About 24 hours after the core collapsed, the star would rise to a maximum brightness just a little dimmer than the full moon. It would initially be bluish-white in color and would easily cast shadows at night. It would also be visible during the daytime. It would remain near maximum brightness for about 3 months. And then over a period of another month, it would drop precipitously in brightness by a factor of nearly 10. By 4 months past maximum, the precipitous drop will end, and the supernova will fade more slowly due to a radioactive decay process occurring in the expanding gases. Once this happens, it will take about 4 years for the supernova to disappear from naked eye visibility. A supernova within 30 light years would be dangerous to Earth, but one at 700 light years would not do too much damage to the Earth's atmosphere. Supernovae can emit dangerous radiations like X-rays and gamma rays, but the Earth's atmosphere would protect us from these high-energy wavelengths of light, as well as any charged particles accelerated to near the speed of light. The gases would reach our area after about 14,000 years. What this means is that if Betelgeuse became a supernova, its show in our vicinity would last a really long time. But now, let's consider an alternative interpretation that when Betelgeuse faded this year, it was not engaged in a last gasp before exploding, but was being affected by a change in its environment. Evidence in favor of an environmental change came from high-resolution imaging with the Hubble Space Telescope. To see this, it is important to first know that most stars are point sources of light, as seen even with the world's largest ground-based telescopes and space-based observatories. That is, when we look at most stars with a telescope, we do not see them as we see the sun, a sphere of light with a resolved surface. It turns out that Betelgeuse is an exception to this. It is one of only a few stars in all the night sky whose surface can be resolved with the Hubble Space Telescope and even other telescopes. Besides the sun, which shows a visible surface only because it is so close to us, the evolved stars with the Hubble Space Telescope are all the resolved stars with the Hubble Space Telescope are all red supergiants, because such stars are so huge. A picture of Betelgeuse taken in January 2019, before the dimming, shows a red star with a bright, slightly miscentered spot and a severe case of limb darkening, which refers to how the edges of the resolved surface are redder and dimmer than the central area. This occurs because we see to deeper, warmer layers of gas near the center than we do near the edge, which is known as the limb. The fact that the bright spot is miscentered tells us that Betelgeuse is not spherically symmetric, possibly due to the presence of a small companion star. Could a close-up image of Betelgeuse during its recent dimming shed any light on what happened? The answer is yes. A new image taken in December 2019 revealed that the appearance of Betelgeuse changed. In the recent image, it looks like some cloudy material is affecting Betelgeuse's appearance. This is likely to be dust that was either in the area or was created by the star itself. What probably happened is that material expelled by the star and carried away from it by the pressure of its starlight at some point condensed into dust. This can happen with red supergiants because they are so cool in surface temperature and because they are so huge that they have very low surface gravity. The low surface temperature facilitates dust formation, and while the low gravity facilitates the expulsion of that dust into space. A final possible interpretation of Betelgeuse's dimming is that the star underwent some physical change, such as a change in size and surface temperature, that somehow took its brightness down to the level of Bellatrix. Many variable stars change their sizes and surface temperatures in a periodic way, as if the pulsations are due to a single type of change. Betelgeuse does vary, but not with a well-defined periodicity. It is said to be a semi-regular variable star, not a regular one. Multiple changes may be present in Betelgeuse that can combine in such a way as to produce, however infrequently, the dimming that was seen. However, no strong evidence in support of this idea was found. The presence of a dusty environment is the preferred explanation for what happened to Betelgeuse. A cloud of dust passed between us and the star. The experience of Betelgeuse underscores where dust comes from. It condenses in the atmospheres of huge red stars not long before they go to the great stellar beyond. Dust is a very important type of material found in space. It always involves heavy chemical elements like carbon and oxygen, elements important to life. When songwriters say, quote, "We are stardust," it is a very meaningful statement. The explosion of Betelgeuse would nevertheless have been interesting to see. But I am glad that it didn't happen, or at least that it hasn't happened yet. Everyone will be interested to know that Betelgeuse has fully regained its normal brightness, and all is well again with the universe, and my childhood is still intact with one of my favorite stars. In conclusion, the moral of this story is that the apparent immutability of the heavens is an illusion. We keep getting reminded of this every so often. In spite of the very long time scales of the stars, the way they shine and the way they move, things can happen on the time scale of human existence. The sky is dynamic and full of activity. For a few months, Betelgeuse put on a show that did not require a telescope to be seen. This is not just the wonder of Betelgeuse, but the wonder of nature itself. Thank you very much.
A firmament and a planet, a crystal and a cell, a starfish and a siren, and caves where ancients dwelt. A sense of law and beauty, a face turned from the south. Some call it evolution, and others call it God. A century long and frozen, another star full blue, a Socrates red hemlock, and Jesus on the moon, and millions through the nameless, the straight-eyed pathways walk. Some call it consecration, and others call it God.
Please read the words in the order of service along with me. As we extinguish this chalice flame, let us remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead.
Siblings and kindred, we are each engaged in the free and responsible search for truth and meaning in this difficult time. I hope that you can find truth and meaning even in the smallest things in your daily lives, and to remember that we are in this together. Go in peace.